Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Nigeria's commercial nerve center is being swept away by water. Is the nation's money being swept away into the lagoon, where we'll be finding out tonight what exactly is going wrong? Don't forget, there was a warning by the NSHA that is as of April, that 30 states and the FCT is at risk of severe flooding. Don't forget what has happened in the past about flooding in parts of Kogi, Benue, Niger, and some other parts of the country. It was really, even in Bayelsa, the flood waters threatened a lot of farmland. But tonight, Lagos finds itself wading through yet another battle with nature, as heavy rains and tidal lockup have left streets, homes, and businesses in parts of the city underwater. From Victoria Island to Ijora and Ajegunle, residents have endured days of persistent flash floods, with Lagos State Emergency Management Agency confirming that over 30 communities affected in just about 72 hours. Expert points to a rare but natural phenomenon called a tidal lockup, where high tides from the Atlantic Ocean and Lagos Lagoon temporarily prevent stormwater from draining back into the sea, creating an urban bottleneck for flood waters. As citizens raise furniture, abandon cars, and construct makeshift walkways, questions mount about how the state is responding. What are the long-term solutions are in play, and how climate change and unplanned urban growth are compounding this crisis? Joining me now is Tokunbo Wahab, a lawyer and a commissioner for environment in Lagos, to break down what has become a major crisis on the hands of perhaps one of Africa's biggest metropolitan cities, Lagos. Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Wahab, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Sean.
Lagos is in trouble yet again. Are Lagosians aware of some of the warnings? The NSHA has warned that 30 states, including Lagos State, and there are those who will say, I've forgotten the meters of how much Lagos is under, below the sea level. But what is the, and it's been raining for several days now. Is this the usual 7 days rainfall that happens almost every year in Lagos?
Sean, thank you very much. Let me start by saying to Lagosians, yes, we knew this was going to happen. NIMET gave us a forecast as early as March, and by April, we had commenced the advocacy, and we had briefed Lagosians about 5 times in the past 3 months. And what we said to Lagosians is that based on the prediction from NIMET, we are going to have much more rains this year than we had last year. And for those who stay on the lowland of Lagos, they may have to move to the upland depending when the rain recedes. And on our part as a government also, we've also ensured that we engage our emergency flood abatement gang effort all year round. And in the past few months, they've been able to clean out about 666,000 of our drainage system statewide. And as a state also, we've also ensured we ramped up our capacity by providing resilient drainage infrastructure. We've done about 50 kilometers of secondary collectors in 2 years, and we've done about 38 of primary channels in 2 years. And why am I putting these facts on the table? So our Lagosians will know that as a state, we've done what we have to do. Now, from this, I will now speak to this peculiar nature of the state. Sean, you already spoke to it. There's a lockup. And what do we call lockup? Lockup is when the tidal level is up, the Atlantic Sea, and then the lagoon, which will not allow the storm water to discharge naturally, and that causes flash flood. The rain yesterday was about 15, 16 hours non-stop. So that activates the lockup situation I had always spoken about. Invariably, we had to experience flash flood in certain areas. In some areas like Ijede, Birigbe, Okeletu in Ikorodu, what happened was the contractor had been on site. He dammed the downstream to allow a construction. He didn't know it was going to rain heavily. And so when we saw the video, what we said to him was, kindly go and through that downstream sector. So that this particular video you're showing, so that the water level will recede and then the people can have their normal lives back. This other one is around the Lekki corridor. Lekki corridor is around the Atlantic and then the Lagos Lagoon. So by and large, we expected the rains. We had done the advocacy. We keep doing the advocacy. As a state, Governor Sanwo-Olu and his deputy have been ramping up the provision of that infrastructure statewide. And that's why we can say to anybody that, yes, we won't lie to you. We are going to experience flash flooding. Flash flooding is flash flooding. And the narrative or the conversation people tend to try to avoid is that has to do with climate change. For those who are familiar with current affairs, in the past few weeks, countries that either don't experience this sort of flooding challenges are experiencing them. Texas, North Carolina, New York the past few days submerged their airports, China, Russia, and some other countries globally. Now, Lagos is a coastal state. And by virtue of that, and the fact that a third of Lagos is water, we will not run away from our realities. And those realities are, we shall experience flash floodings, but we as citizens, we should not aggravate the situation. And how do I mean? When you take your municipal solid waste, for instance, and you dump same in the drainage system, that's a recipe for flood. Or when you take your municipal solid waste and drop same on the median, you're inviting flooding. This is the McGregor Canal at Obalende. We do this maintenance every now and then to try and be sure that this axis doesn't get flooded. And this is what we do statewide. This is by effort.
Mr. Wahab, let me jump in quickly.
Okay, sure.
We understand that over 30 communities were submerged in just 72 hours. It tells you the extent and how long some of the rain fell. So quickly, immediately, what are the succor that some of these residents are able to get the relief? And is the government providing to residents that have been hit by this flood? What are the immediate succor that they're getting?
Thank you. I think that data is from LASEMA, that's the State Emergency Management Authority. And I know that we have homes under LASEMA, and the homes have been activated for the past few days to ensure that we move them to those homes and take care of them in the interim whilst the rains subside.
But give me an idea. Which are the areas that people need to immediately evacuate? Because the rains are not gone yet. And from the statistics, it shows that 70% of Lagos state or Lagos land is being low-lying. It means just about 30%. I remember when Senior Advocate of Nigeria was the Commissioner of Environment under Fashola, he warned, he said, if you are in Mushin, you are safe. If you are in Agege, you are safe. But if you are in Ekwe, Lekki, and the rest, you might have to escape because those are in the low-lying areas. So a lot of Lagosians who are watching right now, who have investments, who are living, who have properties in that area, which are these areas that you think are categorized red, amber, and those who think that needs to do something immediately? Can you give us an idea so that Lagosians can be weary and know what action to take?
For the red, those around the agility axis of Lagos, that's Ajegunle, they have to move. Those around the coastal line of Ikorodu, that's around Majidu, they have to move. Some areas around the Lekki corridor, some, not all. And for those, because their tidal level depends on the volume of the rain, as I said, they will be in amber. So there are very few. Now, Sheon, let me say this. Things have changed tremendously from what you described under my brother, the learned senior advocate, who is Dr. Banere then. Ekpere had always been safe. Mushi will be safe. Ikeja will be safe. The lowland areas I just mentioned are those that are abutting the Ogun River. Those staying around the Channels station in Lagos, down that road, the Sherry corridor. Though thankfully the federal government, through the Ogun River Basin, had awarded the construction of that, dredging of that Ogun River channel to help reduce the flooding. But they should be on amber by now. And then the agility corridor around the Agboiketu axis of Lagos.
Now, quickly, I'd like to know, and this calls for accountability, because the story of Lagos and flooding is not a new story. In fact, Lagos and flooding are almost synonymous, because water is the story of Lagos. Lagos in itself is somewhat an island in some sense, because you see that a lot of surrounded by water. It's been said that, reported that Lagos spent about 15 billion naira on drainage, clearing, and flood control in 2024. We still see major arteries like Lekki, Surulere, and Apapa being flooded. Why does it look like these investments, Mr. Wahab, does not seem to translate into visible relief or change for citizens to see, and they keep being affected every other time? Are this money going into the right places? Are they well spent? Can you transparently tell Lagosians today that those monies are judiciously expended?
I can say that boldly. So let me explain what happens when you go to construction. In 2024, like you mentioned, contracts were awarded and contractors had to move to sites. Those contracts, those construction usually takes between 18 and 24 months. It's a cycle. So those constructions are still ongoing. They are not like something you just pick, plug and play. So you mentioned Surulere, you mentioned Lekki. I can mention System 44 in Lekki. System 44A is ongoing. I can mention to you that we're doing systems, these systems, one leg, that's the one behind Sheraton, coming under the new bridge around Okwebi, Maryland. It's ongoing. So when you award a contract, you see the figure, but the contractor cannot access the whole 100% of the money. It will bring a bank guarantee, and they will advance in part of the money to get the job started. So those things take between 18 and 24 months to come full circle. I mentioned the one at
Commissioner, we know that this thing has to affect livelihoods and lives. I mean, isn't this an emergency? Should it be affected by bureaucracy of government? This is an emergency. We're talking about Lagos. Lagos has that is almost a trillion naira or so in budgetary allocations.
So will you allow me to speak, please?
Yes, I will allow you, but I'm saying that the explanation you are giving to Lagosians tonight, as though bureaucracy of government is affecting this.
No, so the law of procurement provides that you don't advance a contractor 100%. You are a lawyer, by the way. You advance a contractor maybe 60. It used to be 30%. Let me make this clear. So now, to avoid this kind of log jams, we reviewed it and we increased it to between 50 and 70. But the span of the contract is said usually 24 months, 18 to 24 months. These are construction jobs that takes a while to ramp up and complete. You can't short-circuit it. You can't. So I'm trying to explain to you that if they have been awarded, they have been mobilized, contractors are on site. This is 2025. We've barely spent.
Yeah.
What he's talking about is about 12 months. We are 12 months into it.
Mr. Wahab, just for a moment. Let's learn. And you're widely traveled. So is the governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. And this is a legacy that has been left by the present president, Bola Tinubu, who was governor between 1997 and 2007, and Fashola took over. It was in the time of Fashola that it was the great walls of the Victoria Island was built to push back. But in all of this, there are lessons that we can learn from other countries of the world who have even worse situation or similar situation with Lagos. And I'll mention them. Cities like Amsterdam, cities in Singapore, they've mastered flood management despite being on a low line and coaster just like Lagos. What is Lagos learning from these models to develop permanent pumping stations, dredging programs, and shoreline defenses? And imagine that if Lagos today declare a state of emergency on flooding, Lagos has a lot of money and it can fix this. Is Lagos government serious about this? Are you learning on these models?
Thank you very much, Sheil. And I'm glad you mentioned pump stations. Those cities you mentioned, those countries you mentioned, don't forget they are sovereigns. So you learn to draw the line. You learn to draw the line between Lagos and those states you mentioned. Those countries you mentioned are sovereigns on their own. Lagos is a state within a sovereign. We are a sub-nation. So clear that, and then let's go to the lessons we've learned. One of the lessons we've learned is that as a state, we have to provide resilient infrastructure all year round. You mentioned the pump station. We're doing one at Ilubire. Why are we doing it? Because we have to deflood the of Lagos Island, knowing fully well that Lagos Island is below the water level. And that's why we have to create that pump station at Ilubire, pumping 3 million gallons of water per hour. 3 pump stations, and at full steam, they do 9 million per hour. These are being futuristic. Now we go to Kushenla, we just awarded the same thing because we realize that over time, the Kushenla road gets flooded every year. And we found the solution in providing them a pump station. Agungi Road, the same thing. Yesterday it was flooded because not the fault of the government. There was a tertiary drainage system in place at Agungi Road, and it can't contain the volume of water from that development. Hence, we've awarded the contract to a force engineering also to give us a secondary collector at Agungi Road that would discharge into the major channel running by the side of Ebano, into Chevron Drive, into the lagoon. Now, on the mainland, we are doing a construction, taking care of systems 1. That's Odo Yalaru. There are 3 legs to the Yalaru, the one from Ikeja, the one behind Sheraton, and the confluence where it takes the water into the lagoon. And construction is ongoing there. So what we cannot circumvent is to allow contractors to give us a substandard job. If the timeline for a contract, according to the expert, is 24 months, let it run its full course. But in the interim, let them give them remedial buffers to take care of any shock, like what happened yesterday.
Mr. Wahab, does Lagos have, for example, a 20 to 30 year resilience plan against flooding as a coastal?
And we have a drainage master plan for the next 25 years. We review it every 2 years.
But I mean, why does it look like we've not seen yourself and the governor on the ground to speak to the people who are affected? Or we've just taken this flooding as just one of those disasters that happen in Lagos?
So, if you say on the ground, I need to clarify this. To start with, we experienced this flooding yesterday. We've reached out to them and we've spoken to them. The government doesn't have to be there. It's a whole ministry. We have permanent secretary.
I know you are always, I see you a lot of the times on enforcement and all of that, but I'm just wondering that, as I've never heard a lot of people who are in pains about their properties and what view. The fear about the compassion about the government and those who believe that Lagos is a hub and a heart, the major artery of Nigeria commerce and economy. What would Lagos say tonight that economy of Lagos State and of the country, which is centered in Lagos, is not going to be further impacted by this flooding?
Sure, what we cannot tell the Lagosians, we won't tell them lies. Lagos will be exposed to the vagaries of climate change. And that means Lagos will have flash floodings. You introduced this program, you started by saying tidal lockups. That explains it in simple English. But as a state, we have to provide the resilient infrastructure. As a state, we have to keep ramping up the infrastructure. As a state, we have to tell our people, be responsible. And that's what we're doing. If nature will take its course, what we can do is mitigate the impact. So if in Texas they lost over 103, it tells you that climate change is real.
I know that. I know that they've given you a lot of names, right? You've been labeled, you've been called so many names. I see what happens on social media, but I know that there's a lot of discipline that the citizens need also to imbibe. If not, our cities are in dire danger. But I don't want to close this program, this conversation, without touching on other environmental issues under your office. I know that places like Vanity and the rest were being shot, and there are those who are shouting that these are indiscriminate clampdowns. What are your reasons for clamping down and shutting some of these business facilities?
So in any civilized climate, you mentioned Singapore, you mentioned Netherlands. For you to run a nightclub, you must have a soundproof building. It's just basic. But people chose to be very brazen, and they want to run a nightclub in an area that is surrounded by residential inhabitants without having the place soundproofed. So you wake up as a person every night to the noise from a nightclub near you, and they will serve them abatement notices. But most of them chose to usually ignore until you wield the big stick. And I tell people this: what brings development is not the prose of your campaign or the poetry of your campaign. It's the will to enforce law and order. I cite the example every now and then that if we cannot enforce our laws and attach consequences to bad behavior, even for this flooding you're talking about, when people choose to go and build on a floodplain or wetland, and the law allows you to remove those contraventions, but they want to tag you names because you're trying to do the right thing, then what are the options? You can't throw your hands up and surrender.
Mr. Wahab, some of these established, like Vanity that you mentioned, didn't the government give them permit to operate? What are the standard procedures? Didn't they follow? Didn't they check? I mean, in some other climes, as much in London and even New York and other places, if you are operating restaurants, if a rat is found around your restaurant, you know that it's going down. It's going to be shot. What are the standards before allowing this investment to come up to say, follow these standards? And the people who set up this business, then government clamps down on them. It does look as though, on the side, on the eyes of those who are being hit by this, that government is not friendly to investors. And those who went to the bank to collect money and get loans for investments.
Now, let me explain the way those things work. So, people, you want to set up a nightclub. Reasonably, you mentioned London. You go get your council permit, your building plan, your renovation permit. That is the minimum you should do. In Lagos, you want to set up a nightclub. You go get the landlord, pay one humongous amount as rent. You try to short-circuit the process by not even going to get renovation permits from the requisite agencies of government most times. They will tell you, do this, you don't want to do them. By the time they now flag you and say, look, by the way, you're running a nightclub, there's noise pollution. That means you didn't have your soundproof properly done. You don't have a soundproof at all. You start running helter-skelter, give me time to go and do the soundproof. Okay, go and bring your building plan approval. They don't usually have it shown. And that's why I said, as a people, we must know there are consequences for bad behavior. And those consequences are what bring changes most times. We won't say because people are trying to blackmail us that we are not business friendly, we will allow them to take a run at common sense and take a run at law and order.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
Yeah, uneasy lies the head that wears the cap, Mr. Wahab. I know Lagos it could be a tough chew. And Lagos is a big deal when it comes to governance in Nigeria. Yourself and the governor, I wish you well. You asked for the job, and you need to get it done. Tokunbo Wahab is the Commissioner for Environment in Lagos. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
I appreciate it.